And welcome to season 4 of Agents of Travel. This is the first episode of season 4. We had a special interim episode between seasons 3 and 4, but this is the official start of season 4.
Wow. And here's the kicker. There's no guest.
There's no guest. It's just us.
Yeah, sorry. We don't have star power to propel you through the episode.
Yeah, you just have to just listen to our sweet voices talk about a trip we went on.
This is a special trip report episode.
This is our second ever trip report episode. We started this kind of new series with our trip report from Rachel when she went to Vietnam. But we did a trip to Colombia. Woo! Colombia had always been on my list, and I was excited to go. It was my first time in South America.
Yeah, I do want to share that over the course of our relationship, you've been a little hesitant, or like you've kind of put South America off for some reason.
Wow, you're really putting me on blast here.
Well, I'm putting you on blast because I think because I studied abroad in Chile, I've always been really hype about returning to South America. And I could never quite, because I think the sentiment you had is, I'm sure, slightly different. But I think a lot of people here in the States don't often think of South America as like a viable travel destination. I really think they're missing out.
I think a lot of people do. You see a lot of people backpacking South America in general, and because for me that was why it was always kind of back near the end of my list, was because it was the place people went for to drop out for 3 months and backpack. I mean, so is India, and I went to India, so that that's
so that not it.
but it did feel like I knew so many people going to South America to kind of backpack around Peru, Brazil, kind of Argentina, Chile, get out there, and Ecuador. It felt like a pretty, I don't know, I guess, I was kind of like this edgy 20-year-old that was like, no, I want to go to someplace different, someplace off the map. No place is off the map. Every place is on the map. But I was like, oh, I want to go to the Balkans. I want to go to West Africa. I want to go to the Middle East. Nobody's going there. Yeah. So and that as well as growing up, on the West Coast, a lot in California. Less so in Oregon, but I grew up in California for a bit and would come down here all the time, and there's a very there's a big Latino influence here, and so I was like, oh, I kind of experienced that already. But I want to go someplace I haven't seen the influence of.
But I will argue, and we've talked about before on this podcast, that it is a common error to maybe equate Latin culture is all being the same thing. And
Agreed.
I think a lot of people think that because there is there are some Colombians here, obviously, but because there's a big specifically Mexican cultural influence in LA, I think people are under the misconception that all of South America is the same, which
Agreed.
it's not.
Yeah. Well, and growing up, that is kind of what I thought, that all of the Latina population was, the one I saw the most was Mexican.
Yeah.
And so I was just like, oh, I've experienced that to a degree, not at all to, even going to Mexico opened up my eyes, so Mexico, I think, is an awesome travel destination, because I always thought of Mexico as, resorts. Growing up, that's the only vision of Mexico I had, was the resorts, and Mexico City, Oaxaca City,
Mexico's so big.
It's so big, yeah.
Yeah, there's so much going on there. So yeah, even Mexico has so many different cultures. Yeah.
Yeah, and growing up, I didn't realize that. And
I think it's a common thing.
Now I have a better idea. Although even Even last week we got a trivia question wrong because where it was
I didn't get it wrong.
okay. I had no idea Quintana Roo was a Mexican state. Most of the table, but most of the table disagreed with Rachel that the 3 states they listed, one of which being Quintana Roo, we got it wrong. We had no idea where those were. We had a sense it was Central or South America, but yeah. But yeah, so we went to Colombia, and the reason we went was because Rachel had pitched it to a previous guest.
I can't remember who, but I know
somebody tell us.
Yeah, somebody tell us. But yeah, it was really cool to I guess that speaks to why this podcast is kind of fun, and that I honestly didn't know a lot about Colombia going into pitching about it. But then researching it for the pitch made me really, really excited about it. And it made it feel I feel like it gave me enough to grab onto to then actively pursue wanting to go there.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd always had Colombia on my list, somewhere on my list, just because of coffee and because of mountains, 2 things I love. And because Bogota seemed like such a city that nobody when I was growing up, nobody went to until I met some people who had been there, and they were like, yeah, it's pretty cool. So I was like, oh, that would be cool to go to eventually. And so when you brought up we should go there for Christmas, we went for Christmas last year. It was like, oh yeah, that would be cool. And when you pitched it, I was like, oh yeah, that does sound cool.
Yeah.
Really getting into the nitty gritty of what's there was eye-opening.
Yeah, I think so. And I'll say for anybody who's interested in Colombia, I think part of what makes it's actually extremely accessible in terms of it's not that far away from LA or from the United States in general.
If you live in Miami,
dude, why aren't you going every
why aren't
weekend?
you going? Yeah.
It's a 2-hour flight from Miami, I think.
Yeah.
So it's actually not as far as you might think it is.
Yeah.
So it's actually accessible in terms of the flight's not that far and it's not that expensive.
Yeah.
Especially if you go in the off season.
Yeah. And look, a lot of you probably know all this already. You're probably saying what are you talking about? I live in Miami and it's right there.
Yeah. We have a big following in Miami.
Yeah. But we are we were a little ignorant in some of these things, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, we flew through Panama City, which was pretty fun. To we only saw Panama City from the air, but that was cool to see the canal, to see the city that I don't know. I'd always heard it was cool, and the airport was cool. But then we flew in from Panama City into Cartagena.
I do want to say real quick. As far as prepping for the trip goes, something I would recommend is not watching the Anthony Bourdain episode on Colombia. So we watched that episode in prep for the trip, and I think you left the episode feeling more excited to go,
yes.
And I left the episode feeling demoralized and stressed out.
Yeah.
And I'll say it is kind of a cultural artifact, and that it came out I think 10 to 15 years ago.
Yeah.
And Colombia was in a very different place when that episode
Agreed,
came
yeah.
out. So I think it's if you do decide to watch the episode, keep in mind that Colombia is a very different place from the Colombia that's portrayed in the episode.
Yeah. And it's portrayed pretty positively, but it is portrayed we are doing these cool things in spite of these cartels, in spite of these militarized groups kind of ravaging the countryside.
Yeah, and even stuff like the food scene was super underdeveloped in the episode, and now I would say it's really thriving, and
which we will get to.
Yeah, we'll get to that. And also just learning that Colombians weren't even able to drink their own specialty coffee until 2013, which is really crazy.
Yeah. It was actually sooner than earlier than that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I did some research. I
Yeah.
know our guide said 2013.
He's dead to me.
Yeah, it was more the early 2000s. I could look up the exact date, but I wrote an article for it on
Oh,
it
cool.
and did some research, and yeah.
Okay,
But it probably
still, yeah.
didn't really come to fruition until when he was talking like 2013.
Yeah. Yeah, so interesting to I just wanted to caveat that
Yeah.
is the prep we did beforehand and how helpful or unhelpful it was.
Well, it was also when I started saying that kind of posting on Instagram that I was going to Colombia, a lot of Colombians started DMing me saying no dar papaya, which means don't show papaya, don't show expensive stuff, don't be a fool and like walk around with a Apple Watch on, like don't be a target. And I don't know, like I think that's wise anywhere you go, but it's also it kind of built up this more dangerous Colombia than what I experienced.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that too. Cool. But yeah, so we landed in Cartagena.
We had landed in Cartagena. So yeah, first we'll kind of go through our itinerary real quick.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. We landed in Cartagena. We spent a few days there.
It was really hot and humid.
Yeah.
So Garrett really struggled.
I really struggled. I was dying.
Yeah. If you're somebody of the pale persuasion and you can't handle the heat, then that could be challenging. I'm somebody who really enjoys kind of being too hot and sitting in my sweat. So I actually really enjoyed that climate.
I could not breathe.
Yeah. But Garrett really struggled. So then we totally changed climates completely when we went to Bogota after 2 days in Cartagena.
So the whole time we were getting around Colombia by plane, we took Wingo because we had 2 weeks, and you can take buses, but it's such mountainous terrain. They're treks.
I'll say a cool thing about Colombian Airlines are you can just. Dogs were off leash at the airport.
Yeah.
They were off leash on the plane. We saw a huge Samoy dog, just sprawled out in the first row. That part was incredible. But Wingo in general, I would say if you have a tight itinerary, maybe splurge for a more expensive airline because it was almost always delayed.
Yeah. And their delays, they would never say they were delayed. It would be the time the flight is supposed to take off would come, and then it would say on time on the app, and then suddenly it would say on time but half an hour later.
Yeah, they were not very accountable to
no
the time
it would be 4:00, you're supposed to take off, and then 4:00 would hit and it would be your 4:30 flight is now ready to start boarding. Wait, this was a 4:00 flight. So we took Wingo around, and that was a lot of fun. We also took a bus at one point.
And I'll also say Wingo was pretty cheap.
Yeah, it was very cheap.
I'll say as far as the Colombia trip in general, we often talk about what are the bigger lifts of the trip, whether they be getting to the country or the expensive food or the expensive, however much your hotel's going to cost. I would say across the board, Colombia didn't really have a super heavy lift.
Yeah.
So also if you're looking for somewhere to be able to travel on a budget, I think it's a great place to go for that.
Yeah, agreed. And you can definitely splurge. There's definitely nice hotels, but we stayed at fine hotels, and they were
they were great.
They were great. We flew into Bogota, and from there we took a jeep to a little mountain town and stayed on a coffee farm for a few days. El Tucan y Jaguar. Was that it?
I know the hotel was called El Tucan.
Yeah. And that's also the coffee farm, the roast, the farm that you can find them on. They have I think Black and White will carry them roasters if for those who really into coffee. And then we went back to Bogota, and we stayed in Bogota for a few more days.
And just a quick note about Bogota, it is a mountainous city. So it was a lot cooler, a little bit of a drier climate. And the city was beautiful. Like there was lots of like street art there
Yeah.
and a lot of really cool museums. So it felt more like to us sort of like a Berlin or like kind of like a colder kind of city vibe.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And I do want to backtrack real quick. I was conflating two different coffee farms. The one we stayed at was La Palma y El Tucan. But yeah, so in Bogota, we stayed in the Candelaria. No. What neighborhood?
We didn't stay in Candelaria.
Yeah, Candelaria is the
Tourist trap.
tourist trap neighborhood, Chapinero. So in Bogota, we stayed in Chapinero, which was a great neighborhood. It's the area that you can walk around at night very easily. And then from Bogota, we went on to Medellin. From Medellin, we stayed in Medellin for a few days. And we spent Christmas there. From Medellin, we went to Barranquilla, where we stayed a night, and then took a bus to Santa Marta to visit Tayrona.
And Barranquilla and Santa Marta are both like more on the coast.
Yeah.
So those were kind of like back to the more tropical kind of vibes.
Yeah, back to the heat and humidity.
Yeah. So in general, like a cool thing about Colombia is like you can go through several different climates in one trip, which was really cool.
Yeah. So that's the general kind of itinerary that we took. So now we're going to go through some questions. Rachel, and we're both going to answer these questions. Rachel, for you, what were your top 3 highlights?
My top 3 highlights. This is really hard. Okay, I can't burn my food stuff right now.
I mean,
right?
I'm going to be kind of like dipping into a few wells multiple times.
Okay. Okay, so a big highlight for me were we went to 2 different Botero museums. And I was obsessed with Botero. Botero is Colombia's I would think like one of their most prolific and famous painters. And he's known for painting everything chubby. Something I really liked about Botero and felt inspired by was just like he had such a huge sense of humor with all of his art. And I read on a plaque that he like loved putting in little details in his art so that people looking at it could have a conversation about it. So I really appreciated that. And also that like he was such a big cultural figure in terms of like insisting that Colombians should have access to really good art. So he donated a ton of his work. So we went to his museums in Bogota and in Medellin. And I just absolutely adored both of them.
Yeah, they were very cool. I really loved what was the Medellin one that had like other floors that were it was just very honest with the placards.
Yeah. At the Botero Museum in Medellin, they had a great like exhibit that was essentially on like the evolution of Colombian art and how like in the 70s there's a point where like artists were revolutionaries and thought that art was enough to kind of like change everything socioculturally, and that didn't really work.
Yeah.
And so it led to this like huge period of disillusionment and kind of like nihilistic vibes, and I just appreciated how honest that was.
Yeah, I was like, yeah, these artists thought their art was going to change the world. It didn't. Art isn't enough.
Art is not enough, and I really liked that. So the museum game, particularly Botero, I think was a really huge highlight for me.
Yeah.
And I became obsessed with photobombing pictures with what I called a Botero hand.
Yeah. There were a lot of paintings with just a hand coming in from the side.
A hand would come in from the side holding like a little flower or a fork or something. So I tried to put my hand in photos far away.
Yep. Ruined a lot of my photos.
Yep. So that was a highlight for me. Okay. Highlight.
I'll
let's
jump in.
switch off. I love that because I need to think.
One of my top 3 highlights. We'll probably go past 3, but who knows? One of my highlights was the La Palma y El Tucan, the coffee farm. It was just, it was up in a cloud forest, up in the mountains outside of Bogota. It was it's supposed to be a 90-minute drive, but with traffic in and around Bogota, it was 4 hours. But it was, it was like down these dirt roads, and then you're just at this coffee farm and beautiful hotel, and you go to these spots. They take you on a tour of the farm. You see,
And it's like so lush. It's
so
like you're in the
lush.
middle of a jungle.
Yeah.
It feels like.
And just like we stayed in a cabin with like this beautiful view of the valley and all the mountains around, and
There's an outdoor shower.
and it's reasonably priced. We were there during the week, so it was a little less crowded, but the weekend seemed to be pretty packed. But and also each cabin is just surrounded by coffee plants, which for a coffee nerd like me, pretty exciting. And then every morning they make you a fresh cup with an AeroPress and of coffee from their farm, and the food is really good. And then you get to do a tour of the farm itself, which is like a little on the on the other side of the valley a little bit. And you see the spots where they kind of roast the beans for any roasters that are coming in to kind of like buy green coffee from there, so they can like kind of test it. And like it's these beautiful kind of like out in the jungle down a dirt road, and then you're in this high tech coffee shop.
Yeah.
Vibes.
Well, and that it was like La Palma was a really big deal too, because they had basically, I forget his name, but like they have this leader who like basically organized a ton of small farmers to like collectively up the quality of their coffee. So to be this like collective, and they also like do grading certifications. And,
you can get your Q grading. Their certification there.
So it was like really too like a place of learning, and they were also like helping younger folks get experience in hospitality, and there were some young kids who were like learning English, and by young kids I mean like early 20-year-olds. But like it's like such a place of learning, and that was something that I was really impressed by.
Our guide Jeff, he talked about how the owner of La Palma, El Tucan, helped him like get a job in a coffee shop in Australia for a little bit to kind of like learn and grow in his coffee skills. And and now he's like back opening up a restaurant near
his
the
very
farm.
own
His
restaurant.
very own restaurant. But and it just like these, I don't know, it was just really good coffee, that really well taken care of, and the quality of the beans were important. And it was just like a spot. They had a big fertilization kind of plant, kind of for all the farmers, and it was just beautiful. And we got to feed the donkeys.
Yeah, there were some like hotel dogs who would hang out with us, which was really cute.
Yeah, the hotel dogs. I love when a dog kind of guides you on a trail, kind of like runs up ahead and then just keeps kind of waiting for you to catch up. That was the hotel dogs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The whole, I mean, really the whole coffee scene in Colombia is a highlight for me. But
yeah, actually, to add on to that, like every coffee shop we went to, it was such stark contrast to like LA coffee shops, where like LA coffee shops, like the quality is definitely there. But what makes Colombian coffee shops so wonderful is that they're like these big, expansive, open air spaces where you're encouraged to hang out as long as you want. They're like beautiful, comfortable. Like it just feels so heavenly to be able to like sit and enjoy your coffee and not feel like you have to get the fuck out. So, and interestingly enough too, all of the like pour overs like came with enough for like 2 cups.
Yeah.
So it was just like so much more of a vibe of like hospitality and hangout. An invitation to hang out and just relax, which was really nice.
Yeah, and enjoy a good cup of coffee. It was the first time I'd been to a coffee producing nation that I don't know, was able to enjoy their own coffee at a high quality. So often you go to these places, these countries that produce a lot of coffee for the world, and it's all exported. All the good stuff is exported. And like we alluded to earlier, they were not allowed in Colombia. They were not allowed to drink their highest quality coffees up until this guy started this out of a flower shop, Amor Perfecto. He started selling. He went straight to the farmers and like would buy a little bit of their high quality beans on the side and roast it and sell it out of his flower shop illegally, in 1999. And a little bit after that, because of that, they were, that law that said Colombians couldn't drink their own high quality coffee was rescinded. And kind of from there, this high quality coffee scene started to grow. And, so many other places. And it's also my own personal preference of a light roast. And a lot of places had a light roast. You can definitely get like the old school coffee in the plazas, which was very fun to do as well. Like
Tinto.
Little old ladies selling Tinto. And you go to it's all the same. It's all instant coffee with a lot of sugar. But it's, you go to the lady that you like having a conversation with. And that is also fun. But I don't know. I love a light roast. I love like really tasting the beans. So places like Tropicalia, Amor Perfecto, Campesino.
And just to like paint a picture with Tinto too, it's like it'd be the kind of thing where like instead of guys stepping out for a smoke, you just see all these old guys in a park drinking Tinto from plastic cups, just like vibing. So that I think like just the vibing culture there is just like so much stronger and is something I really loved. So
that's my first highlight is coffee.
Okay, that would be up there for me, but this is great because we get 6 instead of 3. So my number 2, I'll say, would be, if I'm allowed, all of the tours we went on. I think like when we were in Ethiopia, we went on a lot of tours, which were like informational and interesting, but ultimately like I think like I'd rank them like a 6 out of 10, you know? Whereas in Colombia, it was like, I think I just like loved every single tour we went on. We did a Gabriel Garcia Marquez tour
of Cartagena,
with, oh my gosh, what's his name? I wrote it down.
Oh, he was a professor.
Yes.
So we found this one on Viator, which I had never kind of done. I don't know, these kind of apps where you can kind of book a tour ahead of time.
But while you look for the name, I'll just say that was really cool, and like learning about Gabriel Gabo, I guess for short.
Duran.
Yeah. Learning about Gabo from Duran was like really special, and like I ended up getting the book Love in the Time of Cholera and reading that during the trip, and that kind of made the whole trip feel more magical and special. Gabo being another person who just like I think had such a quality of like humor and really understanding the human experience, and with the magical realism too, which is something I'm a big sucker for.
Yeah.
That was just like such a banger way to start our trip. And then we did a fruit.
The Gabo tour was also like I don't know, that was because I really pushed for that.
I was not excited about doing it. I was like shitty about it.
Yeah. I wasn't going to say that, but it was like, because that was, I went through a big Garcia Marquez phase in my 20s, and I read a ton of his stuff then, and really wanted to see Cartagena at that point in like the early 2000s. And so it was exciting to like finally get a chance to see the city that I had kind of read. I mean, not all of his books are set there, but a lot.
He lived there
was always
for a
inspired
time,
by.
And just to like, if you don't know what Cartagena looks like, it's along the ocean, so it is like that tropical climate, but also you have like all these like old Spanish style kind of like winding cobblestone streets, and there's like beautiful, brilliant magenta bougainvillea kind of everywhere. So you can see like how he was drawing from this very magical place and how it informed his writing.
And these days it's very touristy, but you can still kind of find stuff there that I don't know, just feels fun and real and cool.
Yeah. Then in Bogota, we did a fruit tour where we tried a ton of fruits we had never tried before, which I think I had pitched as part of my
You did,
original
yeah.
pitch. And then that was actually the only tour we did in Bogota. But it was a highlight, but I nearly died because I was just like, I learned that my body like can't process a lot of food at once, I guess, or a lot of variable food at once. So like halfway through the fruit tour, I was like having a great time. And then abruptly I just felt my like heart rate skyrocket. And I thought I was either going to throw up or shit myself. And I like loved that tour, and it was cool checking out this like giant fruit market, and I learned a lot. But then in Medellin, we did. Do you want to talk about the fruit tour?
Real quick with the fruit tour, it was we found it on Airbnb experiences, which Airbnb has its issues, but the experiences side was pretty fun. It's hosted by Nomads. It's called the Fruit Tour at World's Sweetest Market, and the guide. It was really cool because you walk in and the guide knows a lot of the vendors and kind of like knows the places to go to get these fruits. And I love, I think I had no problem eating all that sweet fruit. And there was also like this drink that we got that was like, had peanuts and chocolate and like all this and these other grains in
like
it.
Like a heartier hot chocolate or like a more savory hot chocolate.
Yeah, that was really fun. But yeah, it was just fun to be with, have somebody that kind of knows the market and knows the people at the market kind of taking us around. And yeah, that was another thing I'd never really done before, like a tour of a market like that. And yeah, they were really cool. It was fun.
Yeah. And then we did a street food tour in Medellin. And I was like, the fruit market was a fluke. I'm sure it was just eating all those like sweet, like fibery things. I'm going to be fine going into the street food tour. And then I learned like, I think I just can't handle food tours. Like I just like can't eat a lot of food in succession. And the tragedy is all of the food we had was incredible. Like we had arepas. We started off with this very like mild, I guess, like dish that the like mule guides would eat. And that one was good for me because there was almost like, it was so bland. It was comforting to me. It was like milk with hominy.
Yeah. And then you took a bite of a guava kind of like
a guava
candy.
Jelly treat.
Yeah.
And I loved that, even though our guide was like, people don't usually like this. Geronimo. Was our guide.
So this was the vegetarian street food expedition with Geronimo, and he was great. He was
so cool. He wore all black. And he was like reading philosophy books because he said it was like
what book did he have with him?
I forget, but he said it was like his moral obligation to know philosophy and history. And we're like, do you like the book you're reading? He's like, no, I hate it. It sucks. But he's like studying AI right now, and he just feels like such a kind of like emo boy, but who's like endlessly fascinating and interesting to talk to. But he had very carefully cultivated this tour, so highly recommend.
Yeah, this was also on Airbnb experiences. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there were like, it was also because we were there during Christmas, and so there were these buñuelos that were very fun. Fried dough balls with cheese in the middle. Those were fantastic.
And we learned that the frying process for the buñuelos is like so tricky that oftentimes, like basically during the Christmas season, most people at the hospital are there for buñuelo burns because they just drop these dough balls into these giant vats of oil and they explode.
Yeah, so it's not just Americans with trying to deep fry a turkey.
A turducken,
But yeah, and then he also kind of took us around the downtown, the central area of Medellin, which was very cool because that time we were staying in the big tourist area, and it was just nice to kind of see, I don't know, the downtown, the big open markets, and it kind of showed us around, showed us the that big sculpture at the government plaza.
Yeah, although I feel bad because I feel like Geronimo is also watching me just go white-faced and gradually look like I'm gonna die.
As you couldn't eat anymore.
Yeah, Garrett ate all of my stuff for me to a certain extent. But the street arepas were really good too. With like it was also because it was nice to know
especially as vegetarians, we were with somebody who knows all the street vendors. It wasn't going to like specialty vegan shops. It was going to like street vendors who have vegetarian options. And so we got to try all of these kind of like traditional street foods
Yeah.
that were
So
also happen to be vegetarian.
So I'll say all of the tours for me were definitely a highlight. I thought they were all bangers, even though I nearly died in 2/3 of them.
My second highlight, I think, was Bogota. I was not expecting to love it as much as I did. So many people were like, "Oh, you can skip Bogota," but I don't know. Just as a city person and as a mountain person, it really had great city, great nightlife, people out and about, and these mountains, overlooking everything.
Mm-hmm.
The ciclovia was really cool there.
Yeah,
that's where it started.
Yeah.
And so you just see all of these main streets shut down, people cycling and rollerblading, all through the city. It was really cool to see, dogs everywhere.
And dogs are citizens there.
Dogs are citizens there. Yeah,
we saw a dog unattended walk up to a building, and a guy just opened the door for him. Like that guy was like the doorman for this dog. It was crazy.
And Bogota has such good food. I think that was overall my food highlight. Food place that I loved the most was all the restaurants in Bogota. Like, just stumbling upon our first night in Bogota. We were like, what do we want to eat? We walked by this pizzeria and we're like, oh, this smells good. Should we give it a shot?
We're like, are we really going to eat pizza on our trip to Colombia? And that was like some of the best pizza I've ever had.
I know.
And they had a pistachio tiramisu that was absolutely out of this world. It was so good.
It was, and I looked it up later, and it's like a place that's on the top 50 pizzerias in the world for Neapolitan pizzas.
That's insane that we stumbled in on.
I know. We got lucky. Pizzardi Artigianale. I'm probably saying that wrong, but it's in the Chapinero neighborhood. And it was like really good.
And we just walked up.
We just walked up. And then, we were there early.
Yeah.
We
were there
especially
like
for
5
Bogota.
p.m. Yeah.
We were there like 6, which for Bogota is early.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so we walked right in, but then it got busy once, the Colombian dinner time hit.
Yeah.
I'll
say like I could also like easily see myself living in Bogota. It was my favorite city of the trip.
Yeah. Same.
But my third highlight is actually Santa Marta.
Yeah.
I had a Colombian coworker recommend Santa Marta to me, and when I read about it, I was like, I don't really get it. And the thing is, like, Santa Marta, it's on the coast, and it's kind of like where Colombians go to get some time on the ocean. It just felt like there were a ton of families out. Everybody's just like enjoying the water. There was this like walkway where there were like food vendors and kids like playing tag, and like it just felt so relaxing and calming, and like people are like drinking beers on like plastic stools, and like it was just like, to me it felt like a sigh or an exhale just to be there. I felt my shoulders come down. Like it was just lovely.
Just everybody was out all the time.
Yeah.
Especially at night. It was really nice to walk around and just see city life everywhere. Just people out and about, people hanging out by the ocean at night, like going swimming in the ocean at night, and just like running and jumping into the ocean. It just seemed like everybody met up by the water.
Yeah, it's
really
like
cool.
It would be impossible to live there and be lonely because everybody's out hanging out.
Yeah.
All the time.
Yeah, and then like around there, like going to Tayrona was pretty fun. Going to this kind of like picturesque Caribbean
national
beach.
park.
Yeah, national park where the mountains meet the Caribbean. And you hike in,
and you hike through the jungle to get there, and then you feel like you're in a like Windows screensaver of like what a beautiful tropical beach looks like.
Yeah. So that whole region kind of surprised me. Like I would lump in the river walk of Barranquilla to that too, because that was another spot where people were like out and about and walking around. You got the statue of Shakira right there.
Well, don't burn that.
Oh, sorry. But yeah, so that whole area. My third highlight, I really liked the mass transit of Medellin. I'm a
Yeah.
big mass transit boy. I love trains. They only have one metro line, elevated rail line, but they are, I think, the only city in the world with multiple like kind of gondola lines that kind of take you up over the hills as like
And
a
these are like
legitimate way of mass transit of getting people to and fro.
and these are like huge steep mountains that
Yeah.
these gondolas are going up.
Yeah, it was crazy. And it was really fun to be kind of like going up and over these neighborhoods. And, we went to District 13, which was a beautiful, awesome neighborhood. And I would lump in their escalators as like a part of mass transit. Like, this neighborhood that was transformed by these escalators that were built, to help people get up and down, the mountainside that they were living on. But yeah, so there were like multiple of these.
And they're outdoors, which is
Yeah.
the part that's like so strange. Like you're just walking up this hill and all of a sudden
Yeah.
it's like your dream of like what you wish every mountain had.
Yeah,
Like,
I know.
they're just these escalators going up and up and up. And it was just so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And the metro was, really handy, really
Super
easy.
it was
Yeah,
like so
wide
much
trains.
wider
Yeah.
and like so clean, so spacious.
Yeah.
Everybody's very like respectful and like chill, like such a huge departure from like the LA Metro.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Which
LA Metro.
I know we take the LA Metro plenty and we do love it, but yeah.
it's really, it's got
Yeah.
its
It's yeah.
unconventional charms.
Yes. Okay, Rachel, do you have a perfect moment from the trip?
That's a really great question.
Yeah.
I think there were like honestly like a lot of perfect moments, but
Yeah.
I think
There were.
two that come to mind right away are either just like I said, like walking along that boardwalk in Santa Marta and just
Yeah.
being with all these people out at night. Like it felt like summer in a way. Like it had the energy of just like everybody's like relaxing and laughing and every age demographic's there. And like, I think it's like being in the US where there's not always that kind of like invitation for everybody to come and hang out. Actually, Portland feels that way to me sometimes.
Yeah.
There are aspects of Portland that really feel that way. And I think in Barranquilla it was like cool to find that and to feel that kind of like, just like to be with humanity and to feel okay. And like, yeah. So that was like really warm feeling. And then I think also being in the jungle in at the coffee farm and just like having a really good book. I was reading Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow during that time.
Yeah.
And just like having a good book, an incredible view, knowing I could slip into the outdoor shower whenever I wanted.
Yeah.
Like it just felt like the ultimate like vacation luxury.
I mean, you pretty much those are mine too.
Really?
Yeah, like Santa Marta, like waterfront was definitely like I could not get enough of that. Just
Yeah.
I just wanted to be out there all the time, even though it was too hot for me.
Yeah.
But like that was a place where I just was so happy just walking. Like, and then there's like an inner walking area that was also nice with bands playing, but it was it was a bit more touristy. But like the waterfront for me was, I don't know, really where I just I think about that spot a lot. And yeah, I think you're right. Like it does capture kind of Portland. Portland actually probably Portland captures that a little bit for me. But and then like that coffee farm, like just the sun going down on the valley and like watching like the lights on the mountainsides, the homes light up at night on the mountainsides, and hearing the sounds, and then walking over, into the main kind of like the lobby of and getting a meal, and
Usually pasta.
yeah, usually pasta. But yeah, really just that cabin, just looking out over the valley, and they had a kind of like a netting area that you could lay out on,
Where
and
you're like suspended over the jungle.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was pretty fun. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that was I was reading Wheel of Time, book 1, I think. Yeah, book 1. And I'm right now on book 5, so that tells you how long it's been since we went. But yeah, those really were my 2 as well. And what I don't know, what one thing about staying at a place like that coffee farm, like that cloud forest kind of eco lodge, when I travel, I like to, we've done this a couple times where we like to stay in like a moderately fancy lodge for like 2 nights in the middle of a trip, of like a 2-week trip. We'll often stay in like $10, $15 like guest houses, or like
hotels or whatever,
or like like hostels with like their own, with our own room, and then like splurge in the middle, and then go back to like the $10-15.
And this is typically in countries where
we can afford to do this. Yes. So like,
I don't think we could do that in Norway.
No, we could not. Okay, Rachel, do you have a meal of the trip?
Okay, because are you gonna ask me about a dish after this?
Yeah. Okay. Well, so yeah, let's conflate these. Let's combine these two. So I have meal of the trip and dish of the trip.
Okay. So my meal of the trip was at Las Veganas in Medellin, and it was the bandeja paisa, which is.
I was gonna put that as dish of the trip.
I thought it was like a whole
meal. Yeah.
I have my dish. But and I have a drink of the trip too that I want.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
So the bandeja paisa, I think to me is honestly my perfect meal, which is like a fried plantain.
Yeah.
Incredible beans that I learned that they make by like using green plantains as part of the bean juice.
Yeah, they blend it up and like mix it. Yeah.
And that was like incredible.
And we got the vegan version with like a veggie sausage.
Yeah, there's a veggie sausage, there's rice, there's avocado, a little bit of like greens and tomato. But like if I could eat that for every meal, if I was trapped on an island, that would be like the meal I would eat over and over again. Because I think everything's there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What should I go to favorite dish, or do you want to go?
So I have that as my favorite dish because it was on one plate, but that's, that's neither here nor there. I don't know. Maybe that I'm cutting hairs, but my favorite meal of the trip also probably has my favorite dish in it. But that was at Humo Negro, so which is it was a Japanese Colombian fusion place that our guide at the market recommended to us, and it's not particularly a veggie friendly place. It's like very seafood centric.
It had just enough to feed both of us for a meal.
Yeah, so we got all the veggie dishes. It's like a small plates kind of place, and we got all the veggie dishes, and they were all fantastic. And then the chef came out and was like, oh, we can also do, because they'll do a tasting menu, and there's like a veggie dish on there that's not on their normal menu. So we made that for us as well. But yeah, everything there was just so flavorful and like using new flavors. Yeah, using a lot of the produce that they have in Colombia that we can't necessarily get in America. Like we had a cocktail that was made from tomate de arbol, so tree tomato arbol. You're the Spanish speaker, and it was like the dish. So I'm gonna then do my dish of the trip was that baby peas in what was that?
Like a dashi or
Like
something.
a dashi, and it sounds so simple, but it was so beautiful.
What was in the middle though? It was a
Oh yeah, it was a what was that? Not potato, but it was
not a turnip.
not a turnip.
A beet? No.
Maybe it was like a white beet or something like that. Daikon? Was it daikon?
Maybe it was daikon.
I can't remember now. But the baby peas in this like umami rich dashi broth was so good. Like the baby peas burst in your mouth with like this fresh pea flavor, like this green vegetal like burst, and then the broth was just so umami, clean, clear, and like rich, and it just worked together so well. That was my dish of the trip.
Okay.
Aside from the bandeja paisa, which was also like so good. I think about that as well a lot.
Yeah. My favorite dish was it was in Cartagena.
Oh, at the restaurant one
Yeah.
of the first fancy restaurants that we went to.
Yeah.
Because like food, there was a lot of
you could pay $40
and
for
have,
like an 8-course meal.
Yeah.
Which we can never eat like that here.
No.
But at this restaurant, which Garrett's gonna find,
Hopefully.
one of their dishes was this smoked eggplant with yogurt and pickled eggplant, and then you dipped plantain chips into it.
Yeah.
And I'm a big eggplant person. I love to smoke eggplant. Texturally, it's in the mush category, but in a way that's like it's so like fall apart in your mouth. And with the plant, like I love a dip. So it like just was really firing on all cylinders of like stuff that I specifically like. It was like nothing I had ever had before. So that was my favorite dish. And I think this was like a more Caribbean, Colombian kind of place.
Yeah, that was like really good. And I don't know if I'm going to find the name of the restaurant. Maybe look in the show notes.
With a B. Yeah. We'll
yeah.
put it in the show notes.
We'll put it there.
Oh, and I have to talk about my favorite drink because this is actually really important.
Yeah. I think this is both of our favorite drinks.
This is groundbreaking.
This was, because this was a drink I'd heard of a lot, and I wanted to try and find it. And, oh, man, we could not get enough of it.
So it's called Limonada de Coco, which is basically like coconut limeade.
Yeah.
It's like a frosé in texture. It's like thicker.
It depends on how you get it. Yeah.
Yeah. That's how I liked it.
Yeah.
And it's just especially when it's hot out, it's just the best thing I've ever had. And I'm like actively sad I can't drink it every day.
I know. We got to figure out how to make it here.
I know.
It was, it's just so fresh.
And cold.
And we're not big coconut people.
I mean, I'm not a big coconut person.
I've grown to be more of a coconut man.
To be more coconutty.
But this drink is just, and everywhere we got it, it was good. We never had a bad one.
It's impossible.
Impossible.
It's just the perfect drink.
Yeah. Okay. My runner up for best drink after Limonada de Coco was, I mean coffee in general, but this one coffee blueberry co-ferment from Típica Cafe in Medellin was very fun. It's like very blueberry melony, where they a big thing in Colombia that was started, I believe it was started there like 10, 15 years ago, was all coffee is fermented, and to some degree, and they've started putting other things in with the coffee when they ferment. So this bean was fermented with blueberries in it, and so the blueberries kind of get into the coffee bean, and then when you roast it, it just smells like blueberry and it tastes like blueberry, and it's really good.
When you drink it, it's like the essence of blueberry just like fills your mouth.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy where you're almost tasting and smelling it at the same time.
Yeah, and it's because it's and it's not like the other coffees with like artificial flavoring where they spray the bean. It's just like it's real blueberries in there, and it is
Yeah,
really
blueberry
yeah
aroma.
yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be my runner up drink of the trip. So Rachel, before you went, what was something? What was something you were most looking forward to?
Um, Probably before I went, what was I most looking forward to? Hmm. I mean, maybe something that like didn't actually play that big into our trip was like the wildlife.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to see like monkeys and sloths like everywhere.
So this was a disappointment.
Well, this was just like, I think my perception of what would happen was different than the reality, which like there were sloths in Cartagena in a
Yeah.
park. They're just very high up and difficult to
Yeah.
see. Even though a very nice ice cream vendor like knew where they lived and showed me where they were.
Yeah.
And then we saw monkeys in Tayrona National Park, which we almost didn't go to Tayrona, so I'm
I
so
know.
glad
Yeah.
we did.
Yeah.
And also, I'll say that the dogs in Bogota, the dog gentlemen and ladies who like were also citizens of Bogota, they actually really delivered, and I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Which I should have, because it was kind of similar in Santiago, Chile, but I just didn't. I didn't know how widespread the
Yeah.
adult dog vibe was, so that was like actually a really good surprise. But I think like what I thought of the wildlife and the reality was like different, with some good surprises and like some maybe like not like huge disappointments, but I was just like, oh yeah, like of course there aren't sloths all over the city. What was I thinking?
Yeah. For me, we've talked about it a lot already, but the thing that I was most looking forward to before we went was the coffee farm. Like when I booked it, I just was, that's all I could think about. I was just so excited. And, to go to an eco lodge, to go to a coffee farm, to really get the tour of the coffee farm. And it lived up. It lived up. I was not I was worried that it wouldn't live up. Like this was my part of the trip that I was really pushing for, and like I made happen, and yeah, I was excited all the way through, and then all the way up to it, and all the way through it.
And yeah, I also want to add that I was excited to speak Spanish going into it.
Oh yeah,
but I was also like really nervous because I wasn't, and I also know that sometimes like trying to speak and understand Spanish for an extended amount of time can make my brain break and feel like exhausted. So I was kind of nervous about that. But in the end, it was really cool to like get that experience and to we talked about this on the trip a lot, but Garrett tends to take the reins because he's just a more experienced traveler than I am. He actually enjoys logistics and I don't. There are like a lot of reasons why Garrett's kind of more at the forefront. However, it is important to me to feel like I can be like self-sufficient and independent. And this trip really kind of like, it felt like we hit a new kind of equilibrium where like people can sort of speak English, but I think my Spanish was better than people's English.
Yeah.
And so I got to have a more active role in our travel. And there are times where like in the past, I would kind of like zone out at the back of the taxi or kind of like disengage. And by being the primary Spanish speaker in our group, I couldn't disengage. Like, our taxi driver would say something and I'd be like, oh yeah, like I have to do this. So that was something that was like really special and different about this trip that I was like very thankful for. Now I'm doing Spanish tutoring because it kind of like jump started me getting back into Spanish again. So that was, I think, really special.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole episode on traveling as a couple together because I think there's like a lot of things that happen when you travel with your significant other that, like I've done a lot of solo traveling and then traveling with, somebody that I love and that I know very well. And, we have like a very, at home, our dynamic is pretty set, for the most part. And then traveling,
It disrupts
it disrupts it, and
Yeah.
then like we have to figure out this new dynamic each time, everywhere we go, and it really is like each trip it's different.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's cool. I haven't really thought about that before, but I think it's like absolutely true. Because also, like, we travel internationally, like, if we're lucky once a year. And
Yeah.
so we've also become different people in that year, even
Yeah,
before
yeah.
we're going on the trip.
yeah. Okay, so then something that surprised you about the trip. That's something. So I'll go first.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest like expectations to what it was my time in very brief in Barranquilla. And it really was like, I mean, really, I'll say it now, I guess. I talked about it for a second earlier. The Shakira statue really surprised me.
Well, are we talking about tourist attractions?
Oh, yeah.
Because I would
That
say that one.
is, yeah, I do have a tourist attraction that lived up to the hype. Yeah, so for me, I'm going to combine. Well,
Okay.
yeah, let's just talk about it. Well, okay. So, yeah, the Shakira statue surprised me. And I
Also,
guess
it's like-
I've got a different tourist attraction for
Okay.
myself, but
It's huge.
it's huge.
And it's hot. It's sexy.
It's sexy, and everybody is there getting a photo with her.
like
and-
young and old.
Yeah, and I it was kind of that Santa Marta thing where it was just like, oh, it was so great seeing everybody. We saw somebody get out of his wheelchair to take a photo with Shakira.
He stood for
He
Shakira.
stood for Shakira. An old
He's
man.
like in his
yeah.
He
And
like hit his cane.
yeah. And, it was just really, I was not expecting to, when I first got to Barranquilla, I was like, okay, this city isn't really for me. It wasn't really, it felt very
Feels a little more residential.
residential, a lot of compounds. But then when we got to the Riverwalk, I was like, oh, okay,
I'm
I
back.
see. I see, this for me is what I'm looking for in a city where everybody's coming together, congregating. Yeah. So that was my biggest surprise.
Yeah. My biggest surprise. Yeah, I guess I'll put this here. Maybe it's kind of relevant. I went into traveling to Colombia. I'm thinking of Piper from the White Lotus
Yeah.
finale in a way. Because I went into it being like, people don't understand Colombia. I'm not some basic white girl. I'm open-minded. Here we go. And the whole time it was fabulous. We didn't have any problems. It was honestly pretty safe. Everybody was super helpful. But then on Christmas Eve, I just started looking into Medellin's past and into Comuna 13 because I wanted more context for this place we were going to go. And then I really got deep into the paramilitary history and how they're missing people in Colombia and how, especially on the borders, those are particularly dangerous areas where there are human rights activists are going missing. And I had been, I think maybe somewhat subconsciously but intentionally ignorant of Colombia's history. I knew that it had been bad, but basically I was I know it bad. I know there were bad cartels and stuff. I'm but that not problem no more.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm actually an enlightened white girl in Colombia.
Yeah.
And I think it was so funny because on Christmas Eve I was doing this and then I broke down and cried at our hostel because I got really scared. And I was especially because in Medellin, a tourist dies every week and they're typically sexpats who are
Yeah.
taking advantage of young Colombian women.
Yep.
So there's a context behind why they're going missing and why we weren't really at risk. But at the same time, I think I got flooded with kind of the danger dump of what could happen. And I got really scared and I felt so ashamed. I felt so ignorant and ashamed and stupid and scared. And I think I was, surprised to have that. I think I was cocky going into it and then
Yeah.
ripped the rug out from under my own feet. This was also because I was staying off of Instagram the whole trip. So then I was on the internet more for better or worse. But yeah, that moment just kind of startled me maybe.
Yeah.
But I think it was like a good moment. But yeah, it was just like all of these conflicting feelings at the same time.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the trip was fine.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, it is like, I don't know, like I kind of had flying in, I was kind of like, like, I don't know, is this really a safe place to go? And then there's so many other people going there and it's fine. And it's not you just, you like any city, you have places you avoid, you have neighborhoods you avoid. And as a tourist and
Even in LA.
even in LA. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, it's just, I don't know. I had a little fear jolt before we went. And then once we got there, I was like, oh yeah, no, this place is totally fine. What am I worried about?
Yeah.
I've been to much more dangerous places.
Not a single bad thing happened.
Yeah.
And it's like, I heard this in a different podcast. I didn't hear this on our podcast.
You're listening to other.
It's fucked up. But I heard somebody say, like, in general, like, people are good. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah. And
Yeah.
that's true of everywhere you go.
Yeah.
So I just had a moment where I forgot that and felt embarrassed that I forgot that.
Yeah. Do you have a tourist attraction that lived up to the hype? I know. Yeah.
The Shakira statue exceeded the hype.
Yeah.
But if I had to pick a second place, I would say like everybody was like, go to Tayrona National Park. And I was like, do we really need to go? And then you walk for 2 hours. You do a 2-hour hike on an elevated wooden path through a jungle where you get to see monkeys and caterpillars and all this cool shit. And then you emerge on the most beautiful beach I've seen on my life with the most like blue ocean. And they even had like little like beachside restaurants set up where you could get like a pretty good, like pretty decent meal. And that for me, I was like, oh, I see why everybody says to go here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, the beachside restaurants were really cool. That was like something that I'd only seen in travel shows and never really gotten to experience, like in the sand.
Yeah.
Kind of like feet in the sand.
You're
like,
walking barefoot.
You're walking barefoot. Like, yeah. And yeah, I'm not a beach guy. The whole time at the beach, I was just reading.
You did go in the water in Tayrona, though. That was a really big deal.
I did. And that was fun. I do like to go into the ocean. I do like to body surf. There wasn't really the waves for body surfing, but I still enjoyed myself. And it was really, nice water. But yeah, in general, I'm not a beach guy. But this, when it's like a perfect beach, even if you're not a beach person, to go to that quintessential, that ideal kind of like representation of, like a tropical beach, you gotta go and you gotta experience it once.
Yeah, like some nature is just so unstoppable. It edges over from subjective to just objectively incredible.
Yeah. And the hike to it, I was like, oh no, there's all these people. It's gonna be so packed.
We're like all competitive too,
Yeah.
with like passing people and
I
stuff.
know.
There's a lot of
And then the beach is big enough that, we just had our
Felt
own little
alone.
spot, and yeah, it was great. It was not a crowded beach at all.
Mm-mm.
My tourist spot that I thought lived up to the hype, and I think part of it is because we were there on Christmas Day, was Comuna 13. Mm-hmm. I thought that was really cool. The art, the giant golden head. And then when we kind of got off the beaten path a little bit, that was really beautiful. And yeah, there was just like a lot of life there. Yeah, I mean, it's very touristy. It's very crowded. A lot of music, which was cool. But again, Christmas Day, it was a little less crowded, a little less, full of tourists. And the walk up to it, it was really cool to see because of all the people out with fires, little campfires in the street with pots of this soup that they were making. It's a very Christmas soup that they make.
Yeah, you just see like whole chunks of corn and meat and stuff just like
floating in this green broth.
bubbling.
Yeah.
Or brown or green.
Brown, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I really loved the street art there and the music there. I thought that was really cool. I don't know if I could do it on a busy day on like a weekend day in the height of tourist season. But the day we were there was, it was really, really cool to see.
Yeah. And just for anybody who doesn't know what Comuna 13 is, because I didn't, which is why I was researching it and then I got very scared, is it used to be one of the poorest neighborhoods in Medellin. But it was actually like a really lovely place where it was like it was one of the most peaceful neighborhoods in Medellin. And then a cartel moved in. And then like a lot of the young men there started being recruited. And then the government kind of came in to like push the cartel out, but they just kind of started indiscriminately killing a ton of people.
Yeah.
To where there are like mass graves where, you know, you don't know if your mom or your sister or your friend are there.
Growing up, I remember hearing about Comuna 13 as the most dangerous place in the world.
Yeah.
Like one of the most dangerous places in the world.
Yeah. So to see it now where the government, I believe, put in the outdoor escalators as sort of like an I'm sorry. But like to help like older folk get up these really steep mountains and then to see all the street art and to see like, it is a tourist trap now, but like to see like there's still a lot of people around there. So it's like also like kind of a place to think about like community resilience and art and all of that kind of stuff. So it's a special place.
Do you have a fish out of water moment during your trip?
Oh, that's what I was going to say for realizing like I'm just a scared white girl in Colombia.
Yeah.
That was like my big fish of water moment, but just for fun, I'll just say there's also this moment in Cartagena where I straight up ate shit in the street. I was just like walking and I tripped on the cobblestones and I fell and I made this giant oof like noise, and like old like street vendors were like, careful, watch your step, and it was just like so embarrassing. Like I wasn't even tipsy at all, I just am clumsy and just ate shit, so that was kind of embarrassing. Felt like it really stuck out in that moment.
My biggest fish out of water, and I enjoyed this moment, but it was kind of like, oh wow, I don't know what, I'm definitely in a spot that like I don't know, like I am I don't know, not in a tourist spot, was when the night we played Tejo. Yeah. And it was just like all the other Tejo lanes were just like
there was like a corporate party.
Yeah, corporate party. This was in Bogota, a bunch of Colombians playing Tejo, and then us to the side.
And we were really bad.
We were really bad. We were just like, how are we not doing this? And eventually we got there, but.
And Tejo is the national sport of Colombia, where you throw like a polished rock thing.
Yeah, it's this big metal disc kind of thing. Yeah.
And you throw it at this like slanted clay platform that has a target on it. And on the target specifically are these tiny little like basically like cherry bombs.
Yeah, pieces of paper full of gunpowder.
Yeah, and if you hit it, it makes a little explosion.
Yeah,
and you get mega points.
We could not do it for a while. Eventually, I think
we each got one.
Well, I think near the end we started getting a couple, but I think you got the first ones, and I think you got the most. But yeah, we eventually started getting them.
But we were there for an hour just hucking these things and like not making any progress, or like our little like metal disc would roll over into the corporate party and we were like, we're so sorry,
and they were like, they just kind of ignored us.
They truly
I mean, why would they? But yeah, that was a fun like little fish out of water moment. Like, because I was like, oh, I want to do Tejo, and I was trying to find a spot, and I found this spot we could walk to and made a reservation, and I was like, oh, this is.
It's also so funny to be like, we have to do the local thing, and like it's nearly deserted except for this corporate party. Yeah.
Do you have a local custom or a custom that I think we've got a couple. And so I don't know if it doesn't necessarily have to be local custom, but like a custom from the trip.
Yeah, I want to say like this is my new travel custom, which like getting off of Instagram was awesome.
Yeah.
I felt like it did make me more present for the trip. And when I was on my phone, I was researching stuff about Colombia I was curious about and scaring myself. But in general, like learning a lot. And then the second thing is I art journaled the whole time, which was really cool because I would just like draw little pictures from each day, or I'd like draw people I saw or whatever. And I would write a travel tip for each day. And that felt like a cool way of remembering the trip that felt fun and not like a chore. Because oftentimes I feel like writing journaling becomes a chore for me very quickly. So capturing the trip in art was really, really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really fun to, I don't know, yeah, like at the end of the day, go over your art journal and kind of like, or at the end of like a stretch in a place, in a locale, kind of like, yeah, kind of remember the trip, not through the photos on our phone, but through the drawings that you did, the watercolors you did for the trip. And like, kind of like these little moments of people, of like these
Yeah.
individuals we saw, and we're like, oh, who is this person? You know?
Yeah, it was a way to catch the small moments. And I also feel like, as far as like sharing the story of our trip, like in a way, people were almost like more amenable to looking at the art journal than they were to like looking at pictures on my phone. So that was actually kind of nice too. Is
Yeah.
like it, like in a way, was easier to share the trip that way.
Yeah. For me, I think it's one that I take away. It's a takeaway I get from a lot of places that I go outside of America, hanging out in plazas.
Dude, yeah.
Yeah,
We got to do it.
we got to do it
But
more.
where?
But
What
where? What
plaza?
plazas? I mean, LA's got a couple plazas.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love it, and it's the best. And you know, you don't have to pay anything to just hang out with friends, and yeah, and watch people walk by. Yeah. It's really
You
like
feel
every
like you're a
plaza
part
was
of
so full.
something.
Yeah. Yeah, I want that for America.
I see that and I'm like, I get why we're sad
Yeah. Yeah, I get why back home everybody is sad and feels disconnected
and alone.
and alone. What are we doing here?
More plazas.
Let's go back.
Yeah.
We can't go back to Colombia right now, but maybe someday we will. We talk about like yeah, you know, if the next trip to South America, stopping off in Colombia, because it is like also a good place. Bogota is probably a good place for a layover.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
we didn't get to the coffee triangle, the coffee region.
That's the thing. Colombia is also huge.
Yeah.
So we just barely scratched the surface. We
Yeah.
didn't get to go to where Colombia kind of borders on the Amazon,
Yeah.
which was also something kind of on our list. So it's also a place that, like, unfortunately, even in 16 days, you
Yeah.
can only barely scratch the surface of.
Everybody afterwards was like, "Oh, did you go to the Pacific Coast? That's the cool spot." I was like, "No, I didn't. No,
we're not
why didn't you
cool.
tell me
We
that
didn't
now?
know."
Why didn't you tell me that before?"
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's our trip report to Colombia. Do you have anything else to add, Rachel?
Just that our biggest missed opportunity was when we were in
Oh,
Bogota. We had
yeah.
that opportunity. Apparently, somebody recognized you from Smosh, and
Yeah.
they work in the mayor's office, and they offered to give us tickets to any Christmas event we wanted to go to, and we had to leave that day. And
Yeah, this is while we were at the airport.
I still think about that, and it
I
hurts me
know.
to my core because that would have been the coolest thing ever.
I know, that would have been so fun. Yep. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening. This is the start of season 4 of Agents of Travel. We have a lot of fun stuff coming up this season. Please tell your friends about us. Please give us 5 stars. Leave a review. That's we want to grow. I want to grow the podcast. I want to like have more people listening. I want to be able to do more things like the travel and adventure show, like one off, and like get access to cool things like that. It's fun to do, and it's fun to hear these stories. So yeah, spread the word. All right.
Bye.
Bye.